You need to study with other people. Don't worry whether you don't know everything, and because and your ego is allowing to do it. You need to study with other people. You need to talk to one another, and maybe 2 or 3 people. Okay, but you need to study because it allows you to talk about it. Okay, and don't worry about looking for, when you take the test. Don't worry about looking for the right answer. Treat each of the questions. Does this have anything to do with this question? That's false. Okay, and then you go to the next one and do it, and try to eliminate the ones so that you don't have to kind of hold in your head what's going on. Really important. This is not a competition on who can get more questions right. Effectively, assume that you've known a lot, and as I said in the beginning, it'll make, when the next time you go through it, okay, which is this week, okay, as you're preparing for it this week and next weekend, effectively, I think you're going to see the things that make a lot of sense. And what it's going to be like, when we first started, it was like, I can't hold my head up over water, okay, it's up here. And now you're starting to put down, and now you can look at least and see the water from there, and it's not like you're drowning in it, okay? So have a lot of faith, and you'll do it. But talk to other people, and they may have a different thing, and they may remember something like solubility, lipid solubility, and you didn't remember that, and you might remember something else, and work that way, okay? I think it'll help you. And it's well worthwhile, because I can tell you, I did a review course at Sinai for years for preparing for the national boards. And in the graduate school, and the graduate students who were MD PhDs, they didn't get any nitrogen metabolism in their course that they took, which was, I think, wrong, because for a medical person who's going to be a physician, you need to have nitrogen metabolism, because look at that one pathway had 7 inborn errors of metabolism. Okay, tyrosine has a bunch. Okay, and those are important. So, and they liked it when I would do the reviews and stuff and give them the list of lists, because it's important. Okay, good. All right,
so
Doctor.
One announcement, since today is Dr. Ronan's last lecture, but he will be here on Friday for the 2 hours of class for review. And the most effective way you can take advantage of his time during that review is to send us questions ahead of time so that we can prepare for it. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the quizzes from the last 2 quizzes on this part of metabolism, and we'll pick out the questions that people had the most difficulty with. And Dr. Ronan can go over those in the beginning, so we'll just put them up on the slide to go over those. But please send your questions to the class reps so that Dr. Ronan can prepare ahead of time to answer any questions that you might have. Okay?
That means
By Wednesday.
By Wednesday.
By Wednesday, after.
I mean, and if you have a question that came up between Wednesday and Friday, that come to the class and ask it, okay?
Right.
But
Right.
you should be able to answer them. I still can't find out how you make free adenine, okay?
Okay. The better prepared you are, though, to ask the questions, the more you'll get out of it for this
Okay.
review.
Good. All right.
Okay.
So for the last lecture, it's actually going to look like some of the first lectures, okay? All right. And this is metabolic interrelationships. There's more material in the handout. And by the way, this is one of those places, because the slides don't have the legends, and the handouts have the legends, and the legends usually explain what's going on, okay? So if you're following purely on slides, you should go back and look at the legends, okay? The handout has the legends, and I think it's important that you deal with it that way. So, okay, all right. This is the overall. So metabolic fuels, okay, and dietary compounds, okay. So we're going to talk about all the things that happen, okay. So in a fed state, fuel stores are in fat. Okay, what's the fat major storage form of energy, Adipose tissue. Okay, what's the molecule? This is chemistry. Okay, chemistry, not anatomy. Okay. What? What? Triacylglycerols, okay? Or triglycerides, okay? Good, all right? The triglycerides, TGs, okay? All right, good. All right, and glycogen? What's about glycogen? And where is it stored primarily? And muscle, liver and muscle. Why is it stored in liver? What? To do what? No? Mm-hmm. Glycogenolysis, which releases glucose. Most of us have never done gluconeogenesis. Okay? All right? You may have studied it. I've studied it a lot, but I most of the time don't do it. So maybe I do, because there was a time in my life when I was hypoglycemic. Okay, so maybe I was doing it. Okay, glycogenolysis. And in liver, what's its function? Right. Okay. Right. That's right. By glycogenolysis. Okay. Right. And gluconeogenesis occurs when? Under what hormonal status? Glucagon and epinephrine. Good. Okay. What has to be low though? Insulin has to be low, right? Because it removes that inhibition of glucagon release. Stuff we learned before. Okay. All right. Let me ask a question. We talked about diabetes and everything, and what is one of the problems with diabetes? So what's the major symptom of diabetes? Hypoglycemia. Does somebody say, "Oh, I think I have hypoglycemia"? What do they usually present with? What happens to all that glucose in the blood? Frequent urination. Usually you're getting up in your age group, you probably never wake up in the middle of the night. I would wish that would happen to me, okay? But as you get older, frequent urination, it's called nocturia. That's the major presentation, okay? The next one is loss of weight. Why are they losing weight? Is glycogen that heavy? Or what? What's happening? Why is loss of weight? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're not making insulin, so the cells don't get the glucose.
So what process is going to be bringing?
Fat breakdown.
Well, okay, that's part of it. Is that the only thing? What's the fat doing? Is it becoming glucose? No. Why not? Because we talked about that. Okay, right? Okay, it's not. So what do you need the fat energy for? What? Yeah, but you're not making ketones for that. You're making ketones because you're making the fats. What process are you doing, carrying out? No, the answer. What? She says to you, you're hyperglycemic, and she said that glucagon is high. So why is glucagon high in somebody who has diabetes type 1? They don't make insulin, correct, right? They therefore have high glucagon, okay? And it doesn't matter how much sugar they have in the cell, you're still making more sugar. By what process? From what carbons? The amino acids. So where do the amino acids come from? Muscle breakdown, okay? So why do you lose weight? Okay, you lose weight because you're breaking down the proteins to make glucose, right? Correct? Most of them are gluconeogenic. Only 2 of them are ketogenic alone, okay? So now we come by, well, why am I making ketone bodies? Because in order to get the energy to make the glucose, right, I have to make ketone bodies because I end up with a lot of acetyl-CoA, and it can't combine with OAA because any OAA molecule in the liver under gluconeogenic conditions is going off to glucose, right? So I collect that, and I make the ketone bodies, not because they're nice, not because they do anything, okay, but they allow me to get rid of acetyl-CoA, and that's why I'm making them, so I can actually continue to make the energy from the fatty acid oxidation. That energy comes primarily from making FAD and NADH, okay? And then it goes into the Krebs, into the TCA cycle, okay? All right? So, what do you think is going to be found in the urine? Name 3 things that are going to be found in the urine of a type 1 diabetic who is untreated. Sugar. What sugar? Glucose. Good. What? Ketone bodies. Now let's get to this part of the course. If you're breaking down amino acids, what are you also making a lot of? Urea. Or urea for the girls, the ones from Brooklyn and Queens. Urea, okay, okay. I can say that because I was born in Queens, okay, okay. So does that put the whole picture together for you now? Okay. So they're all contributing to putting more stuff in the urine. What does that do? That makes you want to urinate more because you're in essence having more water there, and therefore your bladder fills up faster. So that's why you're getting nocturia or that. Yeah. Well, they are thirsty, yeah, because they're trying to get the water to get the sugar out, yeah. So they are thirsty. Thirst is one, okay, but loss of weight. So do you see the pictures now? And I told you at the beginning of this part of the course that it would all kind of come together. Yes, sir. Yeah, I think I talked about that on Friday. But I will tell you again because it's important, very important. Effectively, when acetyl-CoA enters the Krebs cycle, all right, it enters going with OAA to make a 6 molecule, to make citric acid has 6 atoms, right? All right? But the 2 CO2s come off, okay? And therefore I'm not adding any, I've only not added any carbon to the 4. Okay, because eventually it's going to go back to OAA. So there's no net accumulation of that, so I don't get any net synthesis. If you use labeled acetyl-CoA, done the experiment, okay, or you started with labeled acetate and also labeled alcohol in my thesis work, okay, so I know that it happens. You will get label into OAA, but it won't be, there's no net synthesis, okay. So when fatty acids present to fatty acyl-CoA comes from fatty acid oxidation under gluconeogenic conditions. There's no OAA, so that acetyl-CoA can't go anywhere, okay? But there is no net synthesis, okay? So for instance, amino acids, the 5-carbon amino acids go to alpha Kg. One of the CO2s has already come out of there, and they're actually adding 5 to the system, okay? And they're taking another. So it's added after one of the CO2s comes off, okay? So the vitamin M's go to succinyl-CoA. The 2 carbons have already come off, so they give you 4 carbons become OAA. That's 4 carbons of OAA in a single molecule of OAA. Does that answer your question yet?
Well, so you're saying that it does go, it just doesn't count towards the net?
Some of the molecules, I can explain to you why. The CO2s that come off from the citric acid and isocitrate and alpha Kg, they come in. They're not from the first cycle. They're from the second cycle as it comes around. Okay, so there is still no net accumulation. Okay, so you just have to take my word for it. Okay, and that it doesn't it does that. Okay, does that hopefully help you?
I mean, I guess my confusion is that I was just wondering whether or not acetyl-CoA from fatty acid oxidation goes to TCA or not.
Yes, it does, but not under the conditions of gluconeogenesis.
Oh, okay.
All right. Under conditions of what happens is under gluconeogenesis, normally pyruvate can go to acetyl-CoA, which is what it does, and the acetyl-CoA goes into the Krebs cycle. Under gluconeogenic conditions, the acetyl-CoA actually activates pyruvate carboxylase to make more OAA. It activates it, but it doesn't get converted. So you're trying to make more OAA, and even that doesn't help enough. And so I accumulate all of this acetyl-CoA. There's a finite amount of CoA in a cell. all right? If all of it becomes acetyl-CoA, okay, I can't start fatty acid oxidation because I've got to have CoA for that. So I find another way to regenerate coenzyme A, and that's by making ketone bodies, because that's what they do. They're not because they're nice and you can send them off to the liver, to the muscles and they can use them, okay? It's to regenerate coenzyme A, and you actually use 3 coenzyme A's, acetyl coenzyme A, okay? And you end up getting, you generate two coenzyme A's, which are now allowing me to do the fat. Because gluconeogenesis is an anabolic process, right? I need energy for it. There's nothing, I can't use carbohydrate because I don't have any glycogen stored in liver, okay? And glycogen stored in muscle can't get to liver, can't go to the blood, right, because I don't have G6Pase, right? So, and I don't want to use amino acids because I'm using that for all those gluconeogenic amino acids that we talked about in that. I can't use them because I'm using them for the carbon structure. So the energy's got to come from fats, okay?
You mentioned before that during gluconeogenesis in the liver,
Yeah.
the TCA cycle is not really running as it's
That's not really running. Yeah, it's really not running. It's running from lower areas like alpha Kg going to, or the amino acids that go into alpha Kg go to OAA, but it's not running as a cycle, okay? Is that clear to everybody? Is it making sense? All right. It's a really important question, okay? All right. Are you better? Okay. Okay. You don't study by yourself. Talk to somebody who maybe knows it, understands it better, okay? And then if you come back on Friday, okay, rather than just studying on your own, come back on Friday and I'll try to find another way to make it so it's clear, okay? All right. Good. Everybody kind of comfortable? This was not what I was going to lecture on. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, and protein, okay, we're clear that way, and this is fast-state oxidation. This is really kind of a lot of reviews. It'll also tell you how tall I am, okay? Okay, so here's a reaction, okay, glucose makes energy in some way, and fatty acids make energy. Goes in acetyl-CoA. Amino acids go to acetyl-CoA. Some of them go to other things. TCA, CO2. These two guys, okay, that we're talking about, those two CO2s, and then we get electron transport. So we've talked about this. Don't forget about these guys, even though it was in the first semester. So, okay. All right. This is an important little piece, okay? Caloric content of fuels. Small KAL can be also big C calories. These are small c. This is a kilocalorie. 1 kilocalorie is equal to 1 big C calorie. Okay? And this is calories per gram. So if you thought about it without looking at this before, which food thing that you eat would you have the greatest amount of energy? And I'm going to go back to my first lecture in the first semester. In my first lecture in the first semester, I drew a pathway that went from methane to CO2. And I went by steps, and you went from methane to hydroxymethane to formal, and then formate, and then to CO2. And what was the difference? There were a lot of hydrogens on that, okay? All right? And there were that. And so you're going to oxidize. Each of the steps gives you more energy. The more reduced something is, the more energy that you can get out of it, right? Does that make sense to people? Okay. So which of these things gives you more, is more reduced? Carbohydrate, fats, proteins, or alcohol? What? Fats, primarily. Alcohol is also very reduced, right? It's only CH2OH, okay? It's got one O. Okay, it's mostly reduced. So you would expect to get more energy from fats in that order, then alcohol if you want to include it. If you abstain, it's not a problem. And then protein is kind of about the same as carbohydrates, about the same on that basis. Okay, carbohydrates and proteins are about the same. Okay, you're not thinking, you don't use carbohydrates. You don't use amino acids from proteins for energy. Can you use them? Yes. Okay, if you're on a high-protein diet and a low-carbohydrate diet, you're going to use it. But we tend to not use them for energy. Use fats for energy and sugar for energy. And primarily the breakdown of sugar is in tissues that are required to use it, which is brain and eye and testes. Okay, so all right. So the carbohydrate is 4. So the highest amount of kilocalories is 9 kilocalories, which is fat, and then alcohol, and then protein and carbohydrates are the same. Are there any questions about that? Okay. All right. This is fuel composition of a person. You can take a look at it. Percent of total stored calories. Most of the stored calories are in the triglycerides, okay? Which you were right, okay? And so triacylglycerides, yeah, so tags or tris, okay? TGs, okay? So that's really all that's saying on that, okay? You don't have to memorize that. If you understand that those are the most reduced things in there, okay, then you can kind of guess on a thing, okay? This is not the answer to every question, but just using what you know to, in essence, get an answer. Okay, good. All right. So then we wanted to know daily energy expenditure. There's what's called the resting metabolic rate, RMR, and it's the measure of energy required to maintain life for functioning of major organs, maintenance of ionic gradients, and provision of energy. For metabolic reactions, it's determined in an awake patient. This one is called the basic metabolic rate. The one I'm going to talk about today is called the BMI, or the body mass index. Okay? And I will show you, I will tell you what I did. Okay? The body mass index is your weight, and it has to be your weight in pounds. Okay? Over your height squared. Okay? So, and the height has to be in inches. Okay? All right? And you'll end up getting a number, and we'll show you. Okay, so let me take a look. So I did this for an old man who's actually 6'2". Okay, so the weight in pounds for me at the time I did it, which was probably about 4 years ago, I was 190 pounds. I'm right now, I think, about 182 or something like that. Okay. So my weight in pounds was, I put 190 pounds times 704. I'm 6'2", so therefore I'm 74 inches, okay? So 74 squared, divide it through, and what I come out with is a number 24.4, okay? Now, this gives you the BMI. If your BMI is between 18.5 and 24.9, it's an ideal weight, okay, for you, okay? That's the way it is. So I'm just including. Now I'm probably, because this number is going to be a little smaller, okay, under the weight. So I'm not down here. I'm probably about 20 or 22, okay. So my basal, so my weight is appropriate for what's going on, okay. If the BMI is less than that, you're underweight. So if it's less than 18, the BMI is between 24 and 29. You're overweight or pre-obese. If it's greater than 30, you're obese. So this is where your physician can actually calculate. I mean, that they measure your health when you go for a physical. They measure your health and your weight. They can give you an approximation of what's going on in terms of what's happening. Okay, so that's called the BMI. Anybody got any questions about it? Okay. So, all right. Other factors, males have higher rates of metabolism. Body temperature increases it, so increase with fever. Okay, so disease, fever with disease is a problem. Thyroid status, hyperthyroidism is going to give you higher rates of metabolism. Pregnancy and lactation is increased, and age decreases with age, okay? Which I'm going to show you something else now. Okay. This is the equation for predicting basal metabolic rate from body weight in kilograms, okay? So what we want to do in this situation is, how much should I be taking in, okay, for the size that I am and the weight and the age that I am? Okay, so you know I'm greater than 60, okay? So now so I'm in your grandparents', maybe your great-grandparents' ages, okay? So that's where I am, okay? And so the BMR calories per day is 13.5 times my weight. But in this one, the weight is actually in kilograms. And my weight in kilograms is, I think it's 86 or 84.4. Okay. It's 86 kilograms, okay? So that's going to be 13.5 times 86 kilograms plus 487, okay? This is for females, okay? And when I do that, I come out with 2,064 calories per day, okay? Which means that that's what I should have calories a day. So if you 3 meals a day, you're talking about approximately 700 calories a day, okay? So the scone that weighs is 275 calories, okay? You eat 2 of them, you're pretty much eating, that's what you should be eating, okay? And what you'll find is that I can't eat what I am. It's probably closer now to probably more like 1,800 calories per day on that basis. So this is a way, if you're interested in yourself, you can look yourselves up. You're in this group, 3 to 10, 10 to 18, 18 here you are, okay? So you see that your weight becomes more important. The only thing is make sure you just get it to kilos, into kilos, and so it's useful. It's a way of saying to somebody, how much, doctor, I keep gaining weight, what should I do? You can look up what your body type and age and whether you're male or female, and essentially be able to get an idea of what you're going to use for that, okay? I just wanted to make one correction here. Dietary requirements, carbohydrates, lipids. These are the essential fatty acids. This increases, it says icosapentaenoic acid and docosahexaenoic acid, okay? These both are made to, in essence, make icosanoids, and they're actually made from this and this, okay? So these are the essentials. The making of these make these essential, okay? That's really, is that clear to everybody? Okay? Proteins, the essential amino acids, private Tim Hall. And we're going to talk about something called nitrogen balance. Have we talked about nitrogen balance? Okay. Okay, so it's a really important principle. Okay? Nitrogen balance is, if you were to it'd be an absolute nitrogen balance if you took in a certain amount of nitrogen per day and you urinated out the same amount of nitrogen. Okay? That would be normal nitrogen balance. Okay? All right. If you take in more than you urinate out, it means that the nitrogen and the proteins and the amino acids that you're taking, that nitrogen is going into proteins, then you're going to excrete less nitrogen because you're not using them that way. If you do that, you're considered to be in positive nitrogen balance. Okay? The opposite is that if you excrete more than you take in, okay, you're in negative nitrogen balance. That's not where you want to be. You want to be right in balance or in that you're taking it in. Because what's happening is that if you're in positive nitrogen balances, you're actually growing or repairing or whatever you're doing on that purpose. If you're in negative or nitrogen balance, you're breaking down protein to make the amino acids and then make the urea, and you're excreting it. Okay? Is that concept clear for you? Okay. I'll show you one towards the end on how it has an effect on disease, infectious disease. Okay. All right. So here's positive growth, nitrogen balance. Okay, so it's more, you eat more than you excrete. Childhood, pregnancy, normal, healthy adult, nitrogen is the same as what you eat and what you excrete. And negative, dietary deficiency of total protein or amino acids. Which amino acids would create a dietary deficiency of total proteins? Which ones wouldn't you include? Would be a problem? The essentials, yeah. If you don't include the essentials, for the same reason, what happens when you don't have all the amino acids to protein synthesis and translation? You don't make proteins. And why don't you make proteins? Because in order to make proteins and translate, all the tRNAs have to be loaded, okay? So that's the really important one. That's why you can't just eliminate amino acids, essential amino acids, because you won't have a protein synthesis, and that's going to eventually, if you did that, you would die. Yes.
So patients who have diabetes, are they in the
Stabbing?
nitrogen balance, or is that not? Because they break it down.
Well, it's kind of hard, you know. I think nobody's going to do a nitrogen balance test on somebody who's bleeding, or who's you said stab.
Diabetes.
Oh, diabetes.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would happen in diabetic?
They'll be breaking out of proteins.
Okay, so they're waving like this.
Oh, you get
Yeah, okay, so what?
You get rid of a lot of it in the urine.
Yeah, what are you getting rid of in the urine?
Yeah.
Sugar, but that's not a problem right now. Urea, okay, urea. So you're going to take out, so you're breaking down protein. So a diabetic type 1 or even type 2, okay, because they're making a lot of glucose, are going to have a lot of nitrogen in the urine, and in the form of urea, okay. But that's a good question, okay. Yes, sir.
Why is arginine only in terms of positive nitrogen balance?
What?
Why is arginine only necessary in terms of positive nitrogen balance?
Because you can make it. It's not a problem because we can make it by the urea cycle. If you make enough, you can drain it off the urea cycle. Okay, so that's why it's questionable whether it's an essential amino acid, but it is essential when in growth. Okay, so the question is, do you drain it off the urea cycle and so that you can make protein, and is there sufficient amounts to now allow the urea to in essence be released, to be made, so you can extract it. Okay, these are good questions. This is what you should be doing for yourselves, is thinking about that and then asking questions and talking to one another about it. Okay, I think it will help. Yeah. Okay. All right. Here's the list from on the vitamins and stuff, and we've pretty much covered that. The one thing I didn't cover, okay, is kwashiorkor. Have you heard of kwashiorkor? And what do you know kwashiorkor is? Okay, so yeah. It's a total protein deficiency. So not only essential amino acids, you could get it from essential amino acids, limiting them. So what happens? The presentation, the classic looks like what? Yeah. They have a distended abdomen, okay? Okay, and what protein is the problem with this? What's called? They're not making albumin, okay? And what happens is albumin in the blood allows water to be moved back into the blood. So when you push out on one side, okay, on the arterial side or on the veins as you first start, the way that it comes back is because you have arginine. You have. Why did I just blank on that? Albumin to, in essence, pull it back. If you don't make it, it stays in what's called the third space. And so they look like they have a distended belly, but it's all fluid, okay? And so they don't have sufficient amounts. That's kwashiorkor, okay?
So it's all in the interstitium?
Yeah. It's what I think it's called the third spot, at the third place. Yeah. So it's not in organs and stuff, and so it's really, you could puncture it and remove it, But the real problem is they're not getting a sufficient amount of protein. Okay, all right. I think we covered pretty much everything. This guy, pyridoxine, and I think this is an answer to a question I had before. Pyridoxine is in a lot of amino acids. Okay, a lot of enzymes involved with amino acids. So like a decarboxylase. But don't think that all decarboxylases use pyridoxine. Only amino acid decarboxylases use that. Okay. So amino acids got to be involved some way in that, in the enzymes, okay? And so, and the example of that they went with cystathionine synthase, which takes serine and combines it with homocysteine, okay? And then shifts the thing, and you make cysteine and alpha-ketobutyrate, okay? that's a PLP enzyme, and so is the one cystathionine cystathionase is also a PLP. But there's amino acids involved in it. Okay, everybody got that? So there's a lot of PLP. Okay, notice megaloblastic anemia with both. Okay, all right. So we talked about that. Riboflavin, thiamine, vitamin C. Okay, all right. The one, I don't think we talked about rickets, okay? In children, inadequate bone mineralization, people who don't get into the sunshine in reasonable amounts of time. When I was in graduate school, I lived up near Gaelic Park in the Bronx. I don't know if anybody, Gaelic Park is filled with a bunch of Irishmen. I'm half Irish, okay? And they always came, they play Irish football and hurling, okay, which is like an Irish field hockey. The Irish field hockey sticks look like axe handles, okay? And everybody who comes to see the game brings their own axe handle. Anybody's got to be crazy to play against a bunch of, where the spectators have axe handles in their hands, because I think a lot of times they lost the ball and they would hit each other. And interesting, this was a group of people probably who went through the Second World War. Ireland does not have a lot of sunshine in the wintertime, and so they were almost all bandy-legged. They were all of them. They would walk. People in probably who were in their 60s and 70s all were bandy-legged from having rickets as children because they didn't have a sufficient source of vitamin D. Okay, so. Important things, okay? So you won't see rickets in the United States, okay? But you will see it and the consequences of it that way. Okay. All right. Okay, these are our trace elements. We talked about copper, okay? And copper shows up a lot. Zinc. We talked about molybdenum, okay? Fluoride is not it's a trace mineral, okay? So. Did I ask you guys where the fluoride was first tested in the United fluoride in toothpaste was first tested? That's and what two cities were? It was actually said in the United States. Fluoridation of water. Fluoride is very toxic, and they had to test it somewhere. So the two cities, I've never lived in one of the two cities, but the one city that it was done was the first capital of New York State. Does anybody know what the first capital of New York State is? That's a culture dollar. What? The first capital of New York State. It's not Albany. What? It wasn't Manhattan. The first federal, the federal center. What? Yes, it was. Very good. Excellent. Kingston. Okay, good. It was Kingston. Kingston is up on the Hudson River Valley, so okay, and it was the first state out. Okay, it was compared to a city of the same size, okay, and one of them, I think, the Kingston was the control, and the other city was it. Does anybody want to take a guess on which city in New York State on the Hudson River Valley? What? I grew up in that area, so I what? Queens on the Hudson River Valley? But I was born there. I left there at the age of 7. That's where I got rid of my I don't say idea, okay? My Queens accent, okay? What? Yes, absolutely. Newburgh. Okay. There's no reason for you to know that, but that's okay. Okay. It was Newburgh, yeah. I grew up in Beacon on the other side of the river. Okay. You know how I got to school? I lived on one side of the river and went to the other side of the river for high school. You know how I got to school? On a boat. Yeah, what kind of a boat? Ice-breaking ferry boat. Okay. And we didn't get to school sometimes in the wintertime because the river at that time froze apart. Do you know why it doesn't freeze as much? No. It's a tidal estuary. Con Ed built 2 nuclear reactors that dump hot water into the river, and it moves up. It's tidal actually all the way to Albany, the Hudson River, so it's a tidal estuary, so that's the reason why I couldn't do it. So. Okay. So I got rid of 2 culture dollars. That's good. Okay. Okay. I think I would like to skip this. This is effectively what happens with sepsis and everything. Skeletal muscle releases amino acids and glutamine, and they go to kidney and get rid of ammonia. And then the amino acids go to macrophages, lymphocytes, and fibroblasts. So that's some group of the cells from the reticular endothelial system. And this is an error. This is not acute. This is acute phase proteins, okay, that are relieved. One of them is called protein C and urea. So there's a lot of movement of nitrogen and amino acids to other cells. Okay. All right. This one, I wanted to talk a little bit about this. This is one in which you need to look at the legend. You have it? Thank you. Thanks. Okay. So this is one. I have a written list. Okay. This is one. Dietary protein, so you eat it. Endogenous protein, you make it yourself, and you get blood amino acids. 3 is synthesis of new proteins. Then things that you can make from amino acids. This is what the lecture was the other day. Okay, prurines, pyrimidines, heme, and other neurotransmitters, hormones, and everything. Urinary metabolites. Okay, this was dietary glucose, which can go to carbon. And you can make amino acids from glucose, not all of them, okay? Then not to lipids, and just looking at it, kind of looking at the big pictures of what we've done today during the last lectures this year. Okay. All right. I think this one is very interesting, okay? So what we're looking at here is amino acid release from skeletal muscle, okay? So amino acid release from the human forearm and the composition of average protein, okay? So this is how much amino acid of alanine is released, and this is the composition of the average protein in the forearm. And then we have glutamine, kind of looks very much the same, and then we have branch-chained amino acids, okay? So this is the competition. What do you think is the difference? What's the difference between this and these two? Yeah, that's good, but it's bigger than that. Yeah.
The enzymes are involved in converting the two?
No. Look at these compared to these two. Are these branch chained? Can you name some branch chained? Yeah. Right, they are, yeah. But what do you know about their essentiality? They're all essential amino acids. So what's happening in these cases, okay, this amount of protein is what you normally have. So this is actually making alanine, okay? This is actually making glutamine because the tissue can do it, but it can't make essential amino acids, okay? And so therefore, it's a low amount of that. It's no change, okay? And so that's it. Then we wanted to see, okay. There's a whole bunch of things on movement. What I wanted to show you, okay, is some of the things. This is one. You've got it already. You have it already there. But one of the things is that you haven't had physiology yet, right? No. So you're going to see, for instance, why things go into get excreted and everything. I included this one. Okay, so these are the branch-chained amino acids. They're in blood. They get taken up into the astroglial cells, and they make glutamine, and then that goes in here, and then we have the purine nucleotide cycle, and we deal with that. And we end up getting, in the neurons, both GABA and glutamate, okay? So what is it? So what do you think? Glutamate is what kind of a neurotransmitter? Excitatory, and GABA. So it's not going to happen in the same neuron, but effectively that's really what it is. So when you're going in and you do the physiology or you do specific tissues, just come back to either your textbook or your notes to look at these things, okay, so that you can actually relate what, you're going to know what a BCAA is, which many people won't know, okay, on that basis, okay? So it's important for you to know. All right. Okay. I have a kosher dollar in this, okay? So this was a study in which they had and this was a study in which they were looking at sandfly fever, which is, I don't know what sandfly is. Does anybody know what tularemia is? And that's a kosher dollar. And I know it for a strange reason. So, what is tularemia? Something in your blood. Tularemia. It's rabbit fever. Okay, and where I grew up in the upstate, my brother was a rabbit hunter. Okay, yeah. The Easter Bunny never came to our house, and he got tularemia. So that's how I know that that's rabbit fever. Okay. So what they were doing here is they were inoculating people with, in this case, with sandfly fever, and they saw that there was a significant increase in temperature. And then the daily nitrogen balance, and so what happens is that after this, under fever, their nitrogen balance became negative and eventually became, as they were getting better, eventually became neutral, and balanced, and then essentially went into a positive way to essentially appreciate, repair, do on that basis. Okay, and then the cumulative nitrogen balance will kind of look like this, and effectively went back to normal. Okay, with the tularemia, they did paired-fed, non-exposed controls. So they had the same issue. They had a much larger, so somebody that was exposed to rabbit fever. Okay. I think the organism is Franciscus tularemus, I think is the organism. And pair-fed, I think if you look up tularemia, you'll see it. Pair-fed, non-exposed controls. So they were fed but not exposed. So they ended up going into negative nitrogen balance. But the ones that were exposed to the tularemia eventually went into a much larger depth of exposed. So this is just showing that both fever and infection can affect nitrogen balance, which makes sense, okay, on that basis. I thought that was an important principle for you to see. And then I think this is more complex than you need to know. And that's pretty much it. So thank you very much, and I think I'm right on time. So if you want to go through it, but don't, we'll just touch on the things that I emphasized in this lecture and the one on the other lecture, okay? I want you to think you're doing great, and you think better than you think you do, okay? You've got to flag yourself and when you're studying this stuff, okay? And it will be well worthwhile, okay? You're gonna do well.